UFC Nashville is this Saturday. We got Cory Sandhagen versus Rob Font. Absolute banger of a main event. The rest of the card is not the best, but it has some pretty good matchups, some pretty equal and intriguing matchups as well. I can see a lot of things going a lot of different ways in this one. So I've done a lot of research and I'm trying to make sure I can do this card justice and deliver some good picks to you guys. So if you guys are looking for some good research, some good predictions, make sure you guys watch this video to the end and consider leaving a like and dropping a subscription if you end up enjoying my style of content and what I put out. We absolutely crushed UFC 291 on the channel. You'll see my favorite parlay on the right there, Miranda Maverick by submission, Derek Lewis moneyline, Jan and Prayer to go to the distance, and Justin Gaethje. That was a very nice cash out at 67x my money. And on the left, this was a very small unit parlay. I did like $3 on it and it paid like $1,500 if it hit. If you take a look, I nailed every fight on the card except Jan Blachowicz. Very upsetting. There actually was one other pick I got wrong, but I didn't bet him because I wasn't confident in it. And in hindsight, it was a silly one. We'll get to that now. You'll see here, this was my total picks. We went 9 right, 2 wrong. The 2 I got wrong was Jan Blachowicz and Roman Kopylov. I feel incredibly silly for picking against Roman Kopylov. I won't be doing that again in his next fight. And Jan Blachowicz, I'm one of those guys who kind of thinks Jan won, but I'm also incredibly biased because that single pick and that single one being wrong and that split decision cost me quite a lot of potential winnings. But it is what it is. That's the game we play. I still made it out pretty damn okay for the card. Uros Medic, we got him at nice plus money. We also got Derek Lewis at really good plus money. He's missing from the list right here, but him and Uros were very good underdog calls. I was pretty happy to get those one done. And my God, Derek Lewis, did he ever go in there and give a giant middle finger to all the people who were saying, oh, Derek is washed, oh, Derek sucks. It's like, dude, he fought the 2 best Sergeys in the UFC heavyweight division, and what was it, Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa, one of them two? He's fighting the best of the best. De Lima was not that dude. I'm glad that that ended up being correct, but I can't get too cocky. A fight is a fight, especially heavyweight. Anything can happen. But my God, when I saw him go out there and land that flying knee and finish it, I was like, my man. I was so happy. So it was a good card overall. Let's hopefully run it back and do just as good on this card. And let's get into the video. So the first fight of the night is Osbourne versus Assu Almabaev. And guys, this is a really tricky matchup because you have the veteran in Osbourne. I know he's not like a super old veteran, but compared to Assu, he's definitely a UFC veteran. This is actually Assu's UFC debut. As we've learned recently, prospects who look amazing outside the UFC don't always perform how you think they will when they get inside the octagon. The UFC definitely could have given Assu a more low-ranking opponent, and it kind of speaks to the confidence level the UFC has in Assu, because if you watch his fights, he's a very herky-jerky striker who mixes it in while he's throwing flurries to get his takedowns. He's very good once he gets his opponents to the mat, with 3 wins coming by KO, 8 by submission, and 6 by decision. 5-0 in his last 5, 17-2 overall. So I can understand why they're getting him in there with a really good opponent right away. What I don't quite understand though is how he's the favorite in this matchup. The amount that Ode has learned through his UFC fights so far is immeasurable, right? And you don't always learn when you're going in there and you're just whooping everybody like Assu has done. Don't get me wrong, he's had some good back and forths, especially with some other good grapplers, but he isn't really having too much adversity, especially as of late, and especially not at a high level. So Ode is far more technical in striking, but Assu is very crazy and relentless. Like, he'll just get in there and throw a bunch of punches to get the clinch, to get the takedown, and his punches aren't pillow punches, right? They actually have shown to do considerable damage to opponents in the past, so he's not a joke on the feet. I personally think Ode is better. I think his straight shots and his technical striking would outperform Assu on the feet for the most part. Obviously, they're both going to get hit. It's a fight, but I do think Ode will have the advantage there. And really, it's about, can Assu get Ode to the mat and do what he's best at, get a submission or just do dominant grappling. And I think Ode's takedown defense and UFC experience is going to be enough to prevent that from happening. I don't think it's going to be a wash. I don't think Ode's going to go in there and dominate, but I do think Ode has good finishing potential in the hands in this matchup. I can see Assu potentially getting caught when he's going in for a flurry of strikes, potentially hurting him, getting him dropped. Ode jumps on top of him, gets some ground and pound. That wouldn't surprise me at all, the way he moves and the way he throws hands. This matchup is fairly typical in the sense that you have your grappler who really wants to take it down but can also hurt you on the feet, and you have Ode who isn't no slouch on the ground. He's got 4 wins by submission. He's not just a kickboxer, you know, but he's a little more technical, crisp, and throws straighter shots on the feet, and far more experience at a high level. So I don't blame anybody either way they pick this one. I can understand why Assu is a slight favorite to be honest, with how he looks in his past opponents. To me, I'd say it should be about a -120 to +120 type of deal. I think it's a little bit skewed, and I'm going to be taking the underdog to start it off in Osbourne. I think the experience will get it done. I think his crisp striking will get it done. I do think he'll probably get taken down once, and we'll have some close calls, maybe even twice. I think he'll get back up though, and I think he'll end up outstriking, doing more damage, and winning the fight that way. I could even see him potentially finishing Assu. It's going to be a great fight though. Like, honestly, there's a lot of fights on this card that really could go either way. That's pretty difficult to make a decision. It would be really easy to just sit on the fence with them, but you got to make a pick, right? And Osbourne is going to be my pick for this one. Moving on up, we have Jake Hadley versus Cody Durden. This is another great matchup. Jake Hadley's coming in at -182. Cody Durden's +140. Both of these guys are 4-1 in their last 5. You can see the striking differential, and it shows in the actual footage. Jake is the better striker. I would also say he has more power. He lands 4.21 significant strikes per minute and takes only 3.52. Whereas you can see with Cody, he lands 3.27, takes 3.21. He's a pretty give one, take one fighter, nothing too special on the feet. His real bread and butter is takedowns, wrestling, relentless pressure with grappling, chasing submissions. He's got 6 wins by KO though. He's also got 4 wins by decision. Wherever the fight goes, he has shown to be able to do that. And Jake Hadley, 3 wins by KO, 5 wins by sub, 2 wins by decision. And again, this is another one of those fights where these guys are both trying to go in there and do pretty similar game plans, but Jake's got the power, he's got better striking, he's no slouch on the ground, he's got great grappling, and he has a good reach advantage in this one. So I'm going to be taking Jake Hadley to win this one. Again, another one, I really don't blame you if you want to go underdog on Cody Durden. He's got more UFC level experience. I just think Jake Hadley is the better fighter from the footage I've seen, and I do expect him to go out there and just be one step ahead of Cody for the majority of the fight, especially as it gets into round 2 and round 3. If it does, I really think Jake Hadley's going to start to pull away with it there. And moving on up to the next fight, we have Jeremiah Wells versus Carlston Harris. Yet again, a pretty difficult fight to pick, to be honest. Carlston's got a good reach advantage on him. They're both very well rounded. I would say Carlston throws more volume and he's a bit quicker, whereas Jeremiah throws a little bit more wild, but with a lot more power. And they both like to get in some striking exchanges, get their opponent to the clinch, drag them down, and do their damage there. They both have 5 wins by KO. Carlston has 5 wins by sub, whereas Jeremiah has 4, and 3 wins by decision to 8 for Carlston. So they're pretty equal again in their general approach, but they just do it in different ways. You can see Carlston lands 4.14 strikes per minute, takes 2.88, and Jeremiah Wells also has a good differential, landing 2.96 and taking only 1.46. So you can see the pace is on the side of Carlston, but as you can see in the footage, the strength and the power is definitely on the side of Jeremiah Wells. Jeremiah is 5-0 in his last 5. Carlston's 4-1 in his last 5. And again, I completely see where you could go if you want to go either way on this one. But for me, I'm going to be taking the pace and the pressure with the reach advantage of Carlston Harris. There's definitely a world where Jeremiah is just too physically imposing and he's able to drag Carlston to the mat, implement his grappling game plan, and control him there with strength and technique. I just think Carlston will be a little bit stronger than he looks. Carlston's been able to manhandle people in the past, just like Jeremiah. And then Carlston throws more. He throws straighter shots. He's got good footwork. I think he'll be able to outland Jeremiah on the feet. I don't think he's going to get knocked out in this one as my pick, though. Again, it is very possible. Carlston's just got to be very careful of the Jeremiah shots. He throws absolute hammers. He throws with 100% evil intent in every single strike he throws. So it's going to be a sketchy battle for Carlston. I definitely could see him getting knocked out. I just think for my actual pick and at the underdog money, I'm going to take the range, I'm going to take his good grappling, and I'm going to take his striking differential over Jeremiah Wells, who's 5-0, kind of due for a loss, and isn't the best fighter. Like, he's not out there like a Khabib Nurmagomedov where he's never going to lose, and I think this is a very even matchup. So truly a coin flip, to be honest, but I'm going to give it ever so slightly to Carlston Harris for me. Moving on up, we have Raoni Barcelos versus Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips is coming in at the favorite at -200. Raoni Barcelos is +155. Raoni's on a little bit of a tough skid right now. He has fought some very good competition. He is very good and aggressive himself. He's just in a little bit of a rut right now, but he isn't a really bad fighter. I don't want you to look at his 2-3 in the last 5 record and think he's a bum. He possesses good power, good finishing potential, good relentless grappling at certain points in the fights as well. So he's got a very well-rounded style of attack. And on the side of Kyler Phillips, you know, he's got a lot of momentum right now. He's 4-1 in his last 5. He's got a better striking differential at 5.5 landed, 3.43 taken versus 5.69 and 5.06. So he is a little bit better, at least on paper, at hitting his opponents with significant strikes and not getting hit. And he does fight very aggressively, and he has 5 wins by KO, 2 wins by sub, 3 wins by decision versus the 8, 2, and 7 for Raoni. But I am going to be picking the underdog again in this one, and the reason for that is Phillips likes to dart in and dart out, and when he does, he leaves his chin exposed, and he also leaves himself susceptible to takedowns and grappling. I know he himself is a good grappler and he mixes it into his attack. I just think Raoni's going to be able to time him when he's doing one of his blitzes in, either catch him with like a check left or a check right, or get a good takedown and start implementing some good grappling control, because I see them at pretty even grappling wise. I think Kyler's faster and he fights more with blitzes. Raoni's more of consistently there throwing. I think Raoni hits harder, and Raoni's got more experience, especially at a higher level as well. So underdog money, yet again, it's a little bit of a vet versus a prospect situation. I could, obviously I could see it going either way. Don't blame you if they're picking Phillips. I'm sure a lot of people will. But it's just the way I see these guys matching up from the tape I've seen that I really see a lot of opportunity for Raoni to catch him. And Raoni is due for a win. He definitely needs it. I'm sure he's going to be putting his all into it, as is Kyler. And yeah, it's a great fight. I'm excited to see it. But I'm going to be riding with Raoni Barcelos for my pick. And moving on up, we have Billy Quarantillo versus Damon Jackson. Billy coming in at the favorite at -185 to +144 for Jackson. Billy's also on a little bit of a rut right now, as many of you guys know, but in case you don't, Billy is a very tough, fast-paced, striking-based fighter. He's 2-3 in his last 5, 17-5 overall. You can see by his striking differential, this guy fights at a very high pace, and he's good at hitting his opponents more often than he gets hit. 7.86 landed to 5.09 absorbed. It's a really good ratio. He's got good takedown defense at 59%. Obviously, it's not 100% or 80%. That would be very good, but it's not like he gets taken down all the time, every single fight. 8 wins by KO, 5 wins by sub, 4 wins by decision. He's well-rounded, and he is able to win the fight in many different ways. He doesn't necessarily need to get the KO. He can win on decision by outlanding and doing more damage to his opponents. He's done that quite a bit. But on the side of Damon Jackson, you're getting a very tough, relentless, great grappler. You can see in the stats there, he's got 4 wins by KO, 15 wins by sub, 3 wins by decision. So it's very clear what his game plan is most likely going to be against the fast-paced, good striker in Billy. And you know what? It is tough. It honestly is very tough, this one, because I could see a world where Damon Jackson gets a hold of Billy, gets him down, and he should manhandle Billy on the ground. I think he's a much better grappler, and he's also very tough, so I could see him taking a lot of damage from Billy to be able to get to those points. So I don't blame anybody who wants to take the underdog money on this. It's very tempting. I think Billy's footwork and his striking will be able to fiend off Damon just for a little bit. I could potentially even see Billy getting the finish on the feet before the takedowns happen. He's just got to be very, very careful of getting backed up towards the fence. That's where Damon does a lot of his best work. And again, when they get on the ground, Damon is actually quite impressive from what we've seen in the past. So if Billy can stop the early takedowns, he should be able to exert enough energy on the side of Damon where he's forced to stand. And I think Billy's going to really run away with it once they're forced to stand. But yeah, the first round is going to really tell all. If Damon runs in there and gets a takedown, pushes him up against the cage, waits for the moment, gets him down and gets his back or something, it's completely over, and I could see it happening. But for my pick, I'm going to be riding with the favorite on this one. I think Billy will be able to get it done. He'll hold off the takedowns for long enough to tire him out, pepper him with strikes, either get a finish or win 29-28, maybe even 30-27 on a decision. So we're riding with Billy Q for this one. And moving on up, we have Ignacio Bahamondes versus Ludovit Klien. Ignacio is a wild striker, has decent defensive grappling, but mainly he's just a flurry guy who goes in there and lights his opponents up on the feet. He's got 9 wins by KO, 4 wins by decision, 4-1 in his last 5. Whereas Ludovit Klien is a decent striker. He's definitely not as good, not as quick as Ignacio. Doesn't have as many different attacks on the feet, but he's got more of a grappling and submission game to him as well. So he's well-rounded. I'd say he's more well-rounded than Ignacio, but lately he's on a little bit more of a skid than Ignacio as well. He's 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw in his last 5. If you just take a look at the striking differential here, it really paints the picture for how these guys really do perform on the feet in their fights. Ignacio is 7.93 landed, 4.51 taken, the highest pace out of all the fighters we've seen so far. And Ludovit Klien is about a 50-50. In fact, he gets hit a little bit more than he lands at 3.44 landed and 3.67 taken. So with the 95% takedown defense of Bahamondes, it really is solid takedown defense from what I've seen. I think he's going to be able to hold up against the 40% takedown accuracy of Ludovit Klien. And from there on the feet, I really think Ignacio will run away with this. I think he's just faster. He has a wider range of attack. He's got more power in his hands. He's got the reach advantage, and a significant one at that. So I can understand the odds being exactly what they are, and I would agree with it. There is a world where maybe Ludovit can succeed in grappling, but I really don't see him succeeding on the feet. I just think Ignacio's reach advantage, his speed, his power, his more tools in the tool belt, it's going to be a little bit too much for Ludovit Klien in this one. So I'm going to be taking Ignacio Bahamondes for the win. I think he's going to get it done around the second round. I could see them having a pretty close round. Ignacio starting to run away with it towards the end of the first round, and then just coming in and sort of bulldozing him a little bit in the second round as he's a little bit more tired. So that's how I see this one going. And moving on up, we have Tanner Boser versus Aleksa Camur. These are kind of two shitty heavyweight fighters, to be honest. One of them is definitely going to go to sleep. Tanner Boser's the favorite at -175. And that's just because he has way more experience. If you look at the fights, it's 20 wins, 10 losses. Aleksa's only had 8 MMA fights. He's won 6, lost 2. He hasn't been knocked out yet. His only 2 losses are on decision, so at least there's that. And when you look at the striking differential, it's pretty similar. 4.17 landed and 2.47 taken for Tanner, 4.78 landed and 3.15 absorbed for Aleksa. If you look at the ratio of how they win their fights as well, it's pretty similar, although Tanner has actually got a few submissions. I don't see that happening in this fight though. And Tanner's got a good reach advantage as well, so I completely see why the odds the way they are. I don't really see anything special in Aleksa's striking that's, cause for concern. He's definitely not a unicorn of anything like that. I think Tanner's going to be able to get this one done. It's his easiest opponent that he's fought in his last 5. He's got the reach advantage. He's got far more experience. This is Aleksa's UFC debut, which usually doesn't go good, even for the best of prospects, let alone the mid-level entry guys. And I think these guys are going to go in there, swing and bang, and we're likely going to get a first round, second round finish on the side of Tanner Boser. Tanner Boser for the win on that one. And moving on up, we have Diego Lopes versus Gavin Tucker. For this one in Diego Lopes, don't pay too much attention to the striking differential stats. He's only had 1 UFC fight that pulls that stats, and he got whooped in that fight, so he's not as bad as that looks from his previous fights. As you can see, he's got 8 wins by KO, 11 wins by sub, 2 wins by decision, and he's got well-rounded forms of finishing the fight and winning the fight, but so does Gavin Tucker. Gavin Tucker's 4 wins by KO, 6 wins by sub, 3 wins by decision, 42% takedown accuracy, and a mid-level, pretty much take one, give one sort of striking differential. So the reason I'm going to be picking Gavin Tucker in this one over Diego Lopes, even though Diego's got the reach advantage, and Gavin Tucker's been a little inactive, he's been out for a little over a year now, I think Gavin Tucker's experience in terms of who he's actually fought to get to this point, while he has less overall fights, he's fought better competition. A lot of the guys Diego's been winning against are not very good at all, so it's sort of a bloated record. And I mean, you saw that from when he got whooped in his last and first UFC fight. And I think Gavin Tucker is going to be just a little bit better than him in most places of the fight. I think Diego might start off better on the feet. He's more willing to go in there and throw. I think Gavin's going to figure him out though over time. Gavin's going to be a little bit better in grappling, has a higher finishing potential on the feet, although I know Diego has a lot of KOs as well. Just again, the level of competition Diego's gone up against to get those stats is notably less to me than Gavin Tucker is. So I'm going to be riding with Gavin Tucker. It's another underdog. I think I've picked quite a few of them on this card, but they're all slight underdogs. Nothing's been too crazy underdog wise. And that's just how I see that one going, though. I can understand Diego being the slight favorite because from his past footage, he does look a little better. But again, he's fighting lesser competition. And other than that, they're both pretty equal in terms of the way they go about fights. And moving on up, we have Dustin Jacoby versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. I cannot pronounce that name. I have a really hard time with foreign last names. I apologize. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but I understand Kennedy is a beast who deserves my respect. So I am sorry, Kennedy. And yeah, this is a great matchup, guys. Kennedy's coming in with a very significant reach advantage. He's also got a good size advantage. He's a few inches taller than Dustin Jacoby, but I expect a striking battle for the most part, and to me, Dustin Jacoby has really good footwork. He's very good at managing the range for the most part. I know he's having a little bit of a rough skid lately, but he does overall look fairly impressive in the fights that he's doing well against, and he's got favorable matchups. Not somebody who's going to run in there and try to take him down. He's landing 5.44 compared to 4.03, striking differential, 60% takedown defense, 11 wins by KO, 6 wins by decision. And Kennedy, he's got 50% takedown accuracy, which is sort of irrelevant in this matchup. 4.89 landed, 4.23 absorbed. So you can see he fights at a high pace, but a little bit lesser of a pace than Dustin Jacoby does. And yeah, he's got the reach advantage, he's got the size advantage, and he's probably stronger. And I think that's why he's likely the slight favorite in this one. I mean, he's also a very good fighter, of course. But I just think Dustin's going to be able to manage the distance, get around the strength and the reach with his footwork, create angles for himself like he likes to do in a lot of his fights. Dustin has a lot of kickboxing experience before even joining the UFC, and he's a very good striker. It's his bread and butter, and I see a striking matchup here. So I'm going to be riding with Dustin Jacoby. I think he's due for a win. I think he needs this one, and he knows that. I know they both do, so it's sort of a silly thing to say, but I hope you know what I mean. Like, I really think Dustin is going to come in there, leave nothing behind, go for it, and I think he's going to mind his P's and Q's and get this one done. I don't think he's going to get the finish. I think Dustin will win by decision. I will say, if a finish does happen, I think it's likely Kennedy who finishes Dustin. So there's definitely more finishing potential on the inside from Kennedy. I just think Dustin's going to be aware of that, going to be able to use his striking experience to get around that, and he's going to be able to get himself a decision win, 29-28 likely, as Kennedy starts to slow down in the second and third round. But really, I can understand why Kennedy is the slight favorite. He's definitely going to be the more physically imposing guy in there, and they both are strikers. So I don't know. I'm picking another underdog. It could really go really good for me this card, or it could go awful. We'll see. I'm definitely picking a lot of underdogs here, but that's how I see it. I'm taking Dustin Jacoby to get this one done. And moving on up, we have the co-main event. We have Jessica Andrade versus Tatiana Suarez. It is kind of crazy seeing Jessica Andrade at a plus 290 on a person who is 9-0 in the UFC, a prospect, and it's a little jarring. But Tatiana is the real deal. Like, I know she only has 9 MMA fights, but she's incredibly impressive in them. She looks to do a lot of what Jessica does in her fights, but just better, if that makes sense. And I know she's fought lesser competition than Jessica has. Jessica has fought the best of that division. She's even beaten some of them. She beat Rose at one point, and she's just learned a lot from her time. But I do think that it's going to start to be her time to sort of begin to fall off from the pedestal just a bit. I think this matchup's tough because Tatiana, I believe she's going to be able to go in there and do whatever she wants in this fight. She's definitely the faster, more crisp striker on the feet. She's got really good wrestling. She's got really good takedown defense at 100%, and she's got good submission game. So if you look at the stats, they're very similar in how they approach these fights. It's just one of them's got a lot more miles on the clock. One of them's brand new. They're both very good. And yeah, I'm going to be taking Tatiana Suarez, but this is 100% an underdog or pass betting wise. Jessica Andrade is probably the best underdog bet of the card, just because sometimes when these really good prospects get jumped up just a bit too much, sometimes they crumble, whether it's under the pressure or it's just the skill difference from what they're used to fighting. And Jessica Andrade is absolutely capable of winning any fight you put her in there with. Don't kid yourself that, even though she's had 2 losses, and got knocked out and not looked the absolute best lately, especially against Blanchfield. I just think that could potentially light a fire under her, get her in the gym more, potentially get her to try to learn new things to make sure that doesn't happen to her, even though she is older. And yeah, gun to my head, it's Tatiana Suarez. I think that's what happens. Betting wise, I might throw a little small, bet on Jessica Andrade for fun, because this should be a little bit closer. This should be like a minus 180 to plus 220 type of thing, not plus 290 to minus 400. That's a little bit crazy. So sometimes when the odds are that crazy things happen. We've all seen it. But that's a good fight. I'm looking forward to it. If Jessica Andrade gets run over again like she has recently, then she's probably got to consider retirement, in my opinion. Will she? Probably not, but she probably should. We'll see. If Tatiana loses, it won't really be too big a deal. She's going to come back. She's going to continue to win, and she'll be back in the spot eventually. There's definitely more to lose for Jessica. I'm going to be taking Tatiana in this one. I'm pretty sure she's probably the popular pick, but I bet you a lot of the bettors are going to be on Jessica just at those odds, and it makes sense. And here we are at the main event, the final fight, Cory Sandhagen versus Rob Font. If you guys are enjoying my videos and you want to wish me luck on my YouTube journey here, take a second and slap the like button and consider subscribing. It helps me grow the channel, it helps me continue to get in the algorithm, and it lets me know I'm doing a good job. So to get into this fight, you have 2 very high-paced strikers. Rob Font is more of a boxing style. He does his best work with his jab and his 1-2 combos. Cory Sandhagen is just as fast and high pace of a striker, but he has a wider range of attack. He's got good leg kicks, good kicks in general, mean elbows, mean spinning attacks. He's got great footwork, better footwork than Rob does. And they both have pretty similar striking differentials. Rob Font 6.46 landed, 4.03 taken. It's a great striking differential at a very high pace. And Cory, on the other hand, is 5.98 to 3.90. So Rob fights just a smidge a little bit higher, but that's because a lot of his strikes he's throwing is a jab, a 1-2. Cory is getting that high of significant strikes per minute with kicks, elbows, spinning attacks, punches, all those things, and he's almost landing the same number of strikes per minute as Rob. So let that sink in. And on top of that, Cory's just got better footwork. Cory has shown to be really fucking good lately. Like in his last fight against Chito Vera, he absolutely dominated him. He made him look like he didn't even belong being in there. I know MMA math doesn't work, but Chito Vera went in there and beat Rob Font, right? I know it was a fight that Rob started out well in, but Chito started to beat the absolute shit out of Rob. And I just think Rob has so many more MMA miles on the clock. I think he's going to be more of a gatekeeper in the division. I don't see him working his way up to a title shot. And I'm trusting in Cory to create a game plan around Rob's most obvious best weapon, his jab, to be able to capitalize, get him out of position. Cory could even take him down and do significant damage on the ground as well. I know he only has 3 wins by sub, but Cory's shown to have pretty good offensive wrestling lately as well. So slight reach advantage on the side of Rob, which is going to help him in his jabs. I just think Cory's fight IQ, his movement, his power, his speed is just going to be too much for Rob here, and so do the odds makers. That's why he's minus 312 to plus 230 on the side of Rob Font. I think that's pretty accurate odds wise. It makes it a little harder to touch because it's a fight, anything can happen. I think Cory should likely be a minus 200 favorite, a little bit closer than it is. But I will be laying some money on Cory just because I really am confident he's going to get this one done. I realize now there's an error on the graphic. Rob Font is definitely not 5-0 in his last 5, so ignore that. I believe he's like 2 wins, 3 losses, something like that. But yeah, I think Rob Font's not going to be able to take this one out. This is just going to be a little bit too much on the side of Rob Font. I wouldn't even say it's a great underdog attempt. I would go favorite or pass on this one, guys. But let me know if you disagree with me. I would love to hear reasons why you think Rob Font's going to win this one. But I think that this is a pretty safe one for the favorite, and I have no shame in betting the underdog. I actually love me some underdog odds, but I don't see it happening here. So Cory Sandhagen for the win. And that's it for the video, guys. We have a fun week of content on the channel again, so if you like my style of content, you want to see me grow and develop as a creator, continue to improve what I do, consider subscribing, consider leaving a like, and leave a comment. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you guys in the next one.